Hello, my name is Melissa Allen, and this is day one of this quick 5-day course on Winter is Coming, How to Survive Winter as a Respiratory Therapist. And today we're going to talk about a big subject: how much overtime should you do? I tried to be cute with the title, to overtime or not to overtime. And we are brought to you by Exam Facts. And what I really want you to get out of this is just basically making an informed decision. I worked as a respiratory therapist for the last 20 plus years, and I've worked a ton of overtime. And there have been times that I really regretted working so much for many of the reasons I'm going to show you in this presentation. So I just want you to be informed about the situation so you can make your best decision this winter. So, one of the big considerations of the reason we all work our overtime, other than we're concerned about patient safety and our fellow RTs that might be struggling with a really low RTs working that day and the census is really high, is money, right? So obviously, depending on how much money they're paying, I know a lot of times there's actual bonuses. If you wait till later in the season, sometimes they'll pay you $100, $200 to come in on top of your hourly overtime pay. So really make sure the money is worth it to you. And when I say it's worth it to you, what am I worried about? I'm worried about your time, especially if you're a night shift employee. Time is a real consideration. If you work 5 night shifts a week, your week's really shot. You're not really going to have much time for anything else. So what I would really advise is pre-planning. Plan now before it gets a little busy, how many overtime shifts a month you want to do and how you want to spread them out. Maybe you want to go ahead and have a crazy week where you do 5 shifts, that week, and then have another week where you do no overtime. So that's your really relaxed week. But think about it now and start planning for it now rather than just picking up here willy-nilly. Saving is another thing. You really want to consider that money. I try to, and believe me, there have been many years where I just spent it all on Christmas, on whatever else it might be, catching up on things. But you really want to consider the overtime winter season, kind of like teachers. When they have 3 months off in the summer, they don't get paid those 3 months because they're not working, but they spread that salary throughout the 12 years. So we should really consider the fact that we have these 3, 4, maybe even 5 months a year where we're really making a lot of money. We should probably put some of that aside and distribute it over those months where we're not making all of that money. Pitfalls. One of the big pitfalls, especially this happens if your season starts really early, September, October, it's already starting to bounce. You can really throw yourself into a new tax bracket with all of the overtime if you work too much overtime before December. So just be aware of that and try to minimize it and just make sure you do the math or consult your accountant, whoever that might be. Another thing that happens sometimes, and this is not something every hospital does, but ask around, especially if you're a new grad, this is your first winter working, or it's your first winter in a new facility, make sure that that facility is not engaging in this practice, because sometimes what can happen, let's say you're scheduled for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of a week, and they're really short on Sunday of that week, and you pick up overtime on Sunday. What I've known some hospitals to do is, in order to save money, they'll cancel you on your regularly scheduled day on that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So therefore, you came in on a weekend out of the kindness of your heart, and you didn't get any benefit from that. So just be aware of that. And the answer to that is pick up later in the week if they are engaging in that kind of behavior. OT too early in a long season, this is more about burnout. If you're one of those young, enthusiastic RTs that just wants to pick up as much overtime as possible, pace yourself. Even though you're young and you can handle it, The season can be really long sometimes. And sometimes later in the season, the benefits will be worth more. They might start paying that $100, $200 per shift bonus to get people. If it's a really long season, if it's a really big season, if the travelers have left, something like that. So pace yourself, don't burn out too early, plan your OT, and then you can last longer. And because really what you're trying to do is not sacrifice your health. I've seen really young people in their 20s end up sick in the hospital because they were working 10, 12, 15 night shifts in a row. And just take care of yourself, make sure you're not sacrificing your health out there. Because basically, if you work too much, especially if you're night shift, 5 night shifts a week, that week's basically shot. You're really not going to have a life. Another thing to take into consideration is all of the expenses of working this overtime. We all know that when we work a lot of overtime, we're not going to do a lot of cooking. We're not going to do a lot of those other money-saving things. We may not even be bringing our own lunch when we're working that many hours. So especially if you're a female and you're responsible for feeding your family, you may be getting takeout or having them order takeout every night of the week. So that has to balance with that overall money that you're making. You are spending more money at the same time. Other expenses, gas and childcare. If you're having to pay for several extra days of childcare a week, that can add up quickly. So, how much overtime you do is your decision, of course. But I really advise you to just plan ahead and decide how many days you're going to do, when you're going to do them, and don't be bullied by those 4 a.m., 4 p.m. calls. You know, if you decide that that's enough for this week, you want to have a life, you want to have plans, say no. Even if you're a new grad, trust me, they're used to the no's. If at all possible, sign up ahead of time. As the seasons get really busy, sometimes they'll go ahead and fill up overtime shifts earlier rather than just a day or two ahead. And that way you don't have that stress of, am I actually working? Are they going to call me? So that is it. Tomorrow there'll be another lesson on a different subject about surviving the winter. Thank you again. My name is Melissa Allen, and this is Exam Facts. Enjoy your winter.